Everyone, welcome back again to Max Easy Lesson. We are looking once more at Tijon and His Brothers by Derek Walcott, but this one is a rather lengthy video, so I'd suggest that you have nothing else to do while you're watching this one, or you may want to take it in sittings, different sittings, because we are going to look at everything that you need to know in just one sitting. It's an overall thing, so you don't have to be switching between videos because everything will be talked about in this particular video. All right, we have character settings, stage settings, that is the sounds, the language, the humor, the themes, the symbols, the chorus. And I haven't touched on the chorus before, but this one you have to pay particular attention to the chorus. Now, at the onset of the play, at the start of the play, we realize that Derek Walcott brings in the magical realism. There is no doubt that there is magic in this play at the start of it, because we first see that the animals can talk and that the devil himself appears on stage with his servants. Now, this doesn't happen in the real world, and it has to be some element of magic that would bring about this idea. The plot itself follows a pattern of a folk tale. It has a similar storyline where the three brothers are given a task to perform. The youngest and the weakest, by all accounts, the youngest and the weakest is the one who succeeds, where his other brothers who are supposed to be stronger, these are the ones who fail. Now, this folk pattern is one of Walcott's trademarks as such, because he uses this to reflect on the Caribbean exploitation, the whole idea, of the Caribbean and the exploitation that the Caribbean people faced while undergoing colonial rule. We see the mother. She's a poverty-stricken widow, and she lives with her three sons, Grosjean, Mijan, and Tijon, in a hut in the forest. There is no doubt that these people are poor. But the supernatural invades their life when the Bolum, which is an aborted fetus, now becomes the servant of the devil, and he comes to their hut with a challenge. The Bolum says that if one of the boys can allow the devil to feel any form of human emotions, then this family will be given wealth. This family will be made wealthy. Of course, this is going to be appealing to the boys because their family is poor, and all they've known all their lives, and as far as we know, is that they have known poverty. So, should any of the brothers fail in this task, though, then the devil would take that brother. The devil would take that particular person. And the devil would take them as a supper. The fact is that one by one, these boys take on the challenge. Now, each in turn is required to deal with a very rude goat. Of course, we all know that the goat has magical qualities too, and so the goat cannot be tamed. Now, we also know that the boys have to count all the leaves in the sugarcane fields and to also collect fireflies. Now, if we all know what fireflies are, we have to realize that these tasks are next to impossible. And of course, from the onset, you are thinking that none of these brothers would actually pass the test. But because it's a folk tale, of course, we know that one would actually pass it. Somewhere along the line, one is going to have to pass it. Now, the oldest brother, Grosjean or Grosjean, depends on his physical strength to match the devil. Now, the devil at this point appears as the planter. Of course, the planter would also represent the colonial rule, and so the devil appears here. The oldest brother loses his temper. He becomes frustrated, and so the devil eats him for supper. Mijan is the second brother, and he's basically he's a wannabe academic. He believes that he is well educated, and so he thinks that he can win this contest by remaining silent. But of course, he becomes frustrated too because the tasks are impossible. The goat keeps running away. Even though he has tied the goats, he keeps running away, and so he cannot keep his silence anymore, because his silence against the colonialism and the colonial master would have meant that he would be accepting what is there and working with what is there, but it doesn't work for him in his favor for too long, and so we realize that he becomes frustrated. He loses emotions, and in turn, he becomes a supper for the devil too. And then comes the youngest brother. There is not much hope in him. because he doesn't appear to be physically strong, and his intellectual gifts are not high, and still he uses his mother's wisdom and her prayers. In other words, he uses his common sense. Where the arrogance of his brothers allowed them to fail, Tijan was humble, and he had respect for others, and this is what made him victorious. He kills the goat and makes curried goat. He then turns to the workers and have them burn down the cane fields so that there is no cane left to count the leaves from. Now, anybody would become upset, and so there is no surprise that the devil or the planter becomes furious, he loses the contest, and of course, he does not want to honor his end of the bargain. He also reveals his racist attitudes in the process, because he turns to Tijan and says, "You little nowhere nigger, you're dirt, and that's where you'd be when I'm finished with you." But he has to honor his end of the bargain. The Bolam intervenes, and of course, Tijan is given the gold, and we all know that the devil would not play fair, and he still allows the Bolam to live, and Tijan receives the gold, but this comes at a price, because when he goes home, he finds that his beloved mother is dead. The confrontation that comes in this play between the brothers and the devil is almost like a parable. Well, it is a parable, and it's a parable about slavery and colonialism, revolution and resistance that existed within the Caribbean society at the time. Next up, and I know you're probably getting tired already, but next up is the chorus. The chorus in the play is important because Walcott uses this to draw on traditions that have shaped Caribbean life. He uses the history of the Europeans coming into the Caribbean and the whole idea of sugar plantations. He also uses the Caribbean folklore, the folk tales that are unique to the Caribbean, and then he also talks using, he also presents his ideas using the revolutionary figures who had actually fought for our independence in the Caribbean. The chorus, first of all, the chorus as a frame. The chorus is a tradition in Greek theater. In this particular play, Walcott uses it as a frame around which the folk tale of the three brothers can be seen. He uses it to suggest that their struggles have epic dimensions, and these are very, very important. And yes, they are, because they represent different aspects of history and how the black people actually fought against colonialism. Now, the second one is where we see the chorus as a political statement. By giving the voice to creatures of the forest, Walcott shows that the Caribbean voices are just as valuable as and honored in the Western traditions. Then we see the chorus as a narrator. The creatures narrate the folktale. They tell the story of the man in the moon, and of course, these are the creatures that introduce the readers to the mother and her three sons. The chorus is also seen as the magical realism. The magic of the talking creatures is important. Their dance movements, their delightful costumes, this helped to lift the mood of the play. Now there is contrast with the tragic realism of the family's poverty, and this suggests that an alternative is there to the degradation, and this is possible because of the offer that the devil presents. The chorus also becomes a lyrical counterpoint. A number of language registers are used in the play. The chorus itself, with the animals, they present a lyrical style and suggest that there is a beauty that goes beyond the hardships of life that as we see experienced by the little family. Now the conflict in the play. Again, people, stay with me. We're getting there. The conflict in the play. Literally, the conflict in this particular play is between the enslaved and the slave owner. In other words, the colonized and the colonizer, the white man and the black man, those that were being exploited and those who were exploiting others. And that's the basic framework for the conflict. The literal conflict can be traced to the history of colonization, neo-colonization, and the conquest of the whites over the blacks in the Caribbean. The conflict is also between the little family and the devil or the planter who eats up the sons, while he does not want to allow them to climb out of poverty, of this enslavement. Now, at the metaphysical level, one could say that the conflict is between good and evil. Evil is clearly seen through the devil or the planter. He is the ideal epitome, of greed, deceit, exploitation, and ruthlessness, cruelty, abuse of power, injustice, racism, you name it, he has done it. He is portrayed as everything that is bad. In contrast, Tijan and his mother personifies goodness. They represent goodness. They represent the faith, humility, love, sacrifice, self-sacrifice, integrity, courage, and wisdom. And these are elements that are often used to overcome evil. Now, due to the righteous nature of Tijan's cause and the courage and determination with which he resists the devil or the planter, the Bolam, who can be seen as representing the future, is set free. Of course, because of all of these positive qualities that Tijan and his mother presents, we see that the devil, the evil, is removed from the equation. Significantly, the devil comes to us in different forms, and this is saying something, and it's highly religious, because we all know that the devil takes many forms. Now, the point here is that Walcott presents to us is that evil can come in different forms. It can come in the way that people exploit workers. It can come in the way of people killing children. It can come in the form of poverty, of ignorance, cruelty, homicide, you name it. Evil comes in different ways. And it is up to humanity to fight these evils. So the conflict then would also be mankind's fight against evil, good versus evil. The conflict also operates on a psychological level. Through the mother and Tijan, one can see that humanity, people, strive to be noble and virtuous despite their situations, despite their socio-economic status. The devil, even though he wants to strip people, humanity, of all their dignity, through the fact that he jeers these people, he laughs at their situation, he doesn't want them to rise above their situation. And when they fail, he takes it as a joke. To the devil, the mother is a poor, withered fool who he thinks is holy to be, who believes that it's holy to be poor. She scrapes her knees to the knuckle, praying to an old bear that's been deaf since noise began. And this is his criticism of the supreme being, of God, that the mother is poor and she continues to pray to a God who does not seem to be helping her. Is this fair and honest? Well, that's what Walcott leaves us to question. Of course, the devil mocks humanity. He mocks mankind. And he sees humans as merely animals. He sees them as the descendant of the ape, poor shaving monkey. He also refers to human life as a hackneyed cough between two immoralities. The psychological warfare continues, but Tijan has allies to encourage him. He has friends to encourage him that he should not give up all hope. Because irrespective of how bad his situation is, we realize that the chorus is on his side, his mother is on his side, he also has spiritual strength and inspiration, and these are the forces that urges him to believe in himself, to believe that he can rise above his situation, and to believe also that he can become even more noble. Here then, the conflict comes between man's aspiration to be noble and heroic, and also against the forces that pull him down, which are the forces which would tell him that he's worthless. These are the forces that would also urge him to behave badly. But we realize that once more, good triumphs over evil. Have you stayed with me this far? Have you still stayed with me? Are you still here? All right, thanks for keeping up. We're going to look next at the characters. Now, I've looked at the characters before, but as I said, this is a one-sitting video that will take you through the entire play, Tijon and his brothers. The brothers. Here we have the story of three brothers who takes the form of a simple folk tale. It has an important meaning, yes. And for many critics, there is that idea that the three brothers represent different aspects of the Caribbean people and their development over time. Grosjean, the oldest, he is the slave. He represents the slave class who have been denied an education, but because of their physical strength, they have that added bonus. Mijan is the second. He becomes educated, and he is the colonized subject. He is educated, yes, but his role is to be a pen pusher. He has to do what the colonizers say within the colonizer system. Tijon is the newer generation. He's the decolonized revolutionary. Of course, he sees things clearly because he has been exposed to the evils of the colonizers' methods. He then clings to and respects the indigenous culture, his mother's wisdom and prayers, and the wisdom and assistance of the forest creatures. He values the lives of his people and fights for the survival of the Bolom, the future. He fights for the survival of the future because the Bolom actually represents the future. So, he is one who resists the system of exploitation. He doesn't want to be a part of the system that the colonizers enforce, and so he is the change that will come. The mother. The mother represents the love, dignity, wisdom, and quiet faith about women. Her wisdom, we can see this in different ways. First up, she tells Grosjean that a grave is the strongest arm of all, showing him actually that physical strength is not to be relied on. She also tells her sons to be respectful to the creatures of the forest. The mother also advises her sons to be respectful to the creatures of the forest. She warns her son to be careful of the papa boy because the devil often appears in different forms and hides behind several features. She gives spiritual guidance to her sons, and she tells them, "You have told me yourself, our lives are not ours, that no one's life is theirs, husband or wife, father or son, that our life is God's own." Now, through this, we recognize her quiet faith, and this is revealed through several actions. One is that it is her prayer that causes the devil to keep his bargain. Of course, her prayer may have won her some amount of benefits against the devil, but it also caused her death. She also blesses Tijon, the only son, who kneels and actually asks for her blessing. Again, we see her deep love, and this is not only in the way she cares for her boys, but also in the way that she welcomes Bolom. She says, "Peace to you, unborn. You can find comfort here. Let a mother touch you for the sake of her kind." Now, some people might have thought that the Bolom could have been her aborted child, but it was just her love for others that drew her to actually embrace the Bolom. The devils is the other set of characters that is important. The play takes us beyond the realism of the mother's hut and reveals the supernatural forces at work. The devil and the lesser demons are clear, and the audience see that the devil takes on different roles. One is that of the planter, and two is that of Papa Boy. In this simple way, one gets to understand that the different challenges in the society, such as the injustice and the cruelty of the plantation system, are energized often by spirit forces. Now, even something that seems so harmless can be negative. And this comes in the form of Papa Boy's advice. But one must also recognize that Papa Boy's advice is inspired by evil, and therefore it counters faith. Indeed, the Bolom is the one who tells us that the wickedness that exists in the world, in the society, is generated by the devil. It is the Bolom who says, "The devil, my master, who owns half the world in the kingdom of the night, has done all that is evil." Again, there is no doubt about the evils of the devil. As a character, the devil shows a variety of emotions. He shows that he is resentful because he has lost his position as one of God's best. He is now scornful of the way in which human beings appear to be weak, and he becomes angry that Tijan has outsmarted him. Papa Boy is the other, and it's the final one under the characters, so you don't have much more to listen for here. Papa Boy is a part of the St. Lucian and Trinidadian culture, right? But in this play, he is one of the personas that the devil assumes. He is symbolic of the worldly wisdom, but the views that he presents are pessimistic. They are full of imagery of worms and death. Now, neither Grosjean nor Mijan sees the evil in the old man. They are probably blinded to the evil in the society. They have become so accustomed to the evil in the society that they don't see it. But it is Tijan, the one who is less likely to see all of this, is the one who is not deceived by Papa Boy. He is not turned off by the old man's negative ways, and of course, even after having encountered Papa Boy, he keeps his attitude of hope and faith throughout their conversation. Here we can probably see that Tijan's struggle against the wiles of the devil is a struggle that the Caribbean people have to take back all that had been taken from them, and through Tijan we realize that this was now a possibility, that black people could actually rise against the colonial system and take back what is theirs. The stagecraft. And when we talk about the stagecraft, not many people will think about what it really is. The stagecraft takes in the scenery, the action and the stillness, the lighting, the costumes, the props, the sound, and the lighting. The scenery is the first one. At the onset, we see that there is a direct contrast between the poverty-stricken hut where the family lives and the forest that surrounds it. The hut in which Tijan and his brothers live and his family lives, it's realistic in many ways. It represents the real world. The forest, of course, is always a dark place of mystery, as in every story we have been told from day one, and that there are some supernatural elements there. Now, the contrast here is between the spiritual world, which goes beyond the realities of everyday life. It is a world where there is magical wonder, and this is shown, or this is clear with the animals that talk. And there is also the spiritual danger, where we see this coming out in the form of the devil and his servants. The action and the stillness. Drama in itself is a spectacle, and it is also action. Indeed, one of the main parts of this play is the rich use of movement on stage. The bolum, he does somersaults around the hut. The forest creatures, they dance and they run about in their own way. The devil cavorts gleefully. And of course, there is the goat who runs around and runs away from the brothers at every turn of the way until Tijan ends his life. Movement can be very significant, as for instance, when we see Tijan kneels to interact with the forest creatures, when he also kneels for the blessings from his mom, and when Tijan and the Bolam go off arm in arm with each other. There is also movement where the devils are on stage and we realize that the devil is constantly moving. Tijan is different from his two brothers. He does not trust the old man he meets in the forest. And his different movements, as he seeks to expose the old man's devil's tail and cloven foot, gives the audience a reason to laugh. Of course, Tijan pretends to cooperate with Papa Boy, but he scatters his faggots instead of securing the bundle, making the old man upset. The result is that there is plenty lively episodes in this play, and it becomes even comic at some point. The lighting. Now, depending on the resources of the company that is putting on this play, or if you're putting on this play within your class, the lighting is going to be important. For example, there is the blue light that will mark out the Bolam as he rolls around the hut. And of course, there is the white light with the mother, and we all know that white lights would suggest some form of purity as she prays for her son. Lightning will also come when the devil appears. And the flames that we see would actually suggest that there is some amount of interaction with the devil's world. The costumes are important. The play offers splendid spectacle of the costumes, whimsical outfits for the talking creatures, frightening costumes for the devils, and peasant garments for the mother and her sons. The props are important. In order to create a serious effect, there has to be 2 crosses to mark the graves of Mijan and Grosjean. This is important. Also, the cloven foot and the tail, sorry. That is important to determine who Papa Boy is. Then, of course, there's the devil's mask that Tijan tries to unmask. And there is also the books for Mijan and the books for Mijan, yes. The sound and lighting. This is important. There are explosions along with musical accompaniment of different Caribbean instruments that are used. The mother's mourning, it is important there because there is no food to Grosjean's military style as he marches off to accept the devil's challenge. The movements when Grosjean and Mijan lose to the devil are marked with a loud explosion. There is the flash of lightning, there is smoke, and there is also that suggestion that this is hell coming to earth. There is also sound and lightning again when we realize that the goat runs about and that Tijan has actually burnt the planter's field. Sound, language, and humor. And we're almost getting there, people. Stick around a little bit longer. Sound and spectacle. Yes, this is important. The action takes place in the forest, and there is a scope for spectacular scenery. And this makes for a dramatic presence of the poverty-stricken hut and later the 2 crosses marking the graves of the older brothers. The costumes and setting can be one of the greatest spectacle in the place because Papa Boy wears a mask of leaves and a long skirt covering his cloven foot. The bolum, of course, is dressed to suggest that he is an unborn fetus. There is the contrast in how the mother and her sons dress because these are poor people, and the forest creatures and the supernaturals will also dress in brightly colored clothes that will make it interesting. The lighting and the sound effects are used throughout the play. There are dramatic flashes of light, smoke, and thunderclaps which mark the anger of the devil and help to create a terror within the violence and the revolution that occurs. Singing is important as the chorus sings, yes, and it adds to the mood of the play and the message that this is going to bring across. Borrowing from Christian tradition, Tijan compares himself to David who sets out to kill Goliath, and he says, I go bring down Goliath, bring down below. To be a man, we find that Tijan must show that he has endurance, he has a strength, and despite his fears, despite the injustice, despite the discouragement, and even despite the grief that he feels after his mother's death, he realizes that he must rise above this grief and stand as a strong black man. The language is important, and it's very, very important to the play. Walcott uses a broad range of language in the play. There is a rhythm, there is unrhymed poetic form, which can sound like chanting. We see this especially with the crickets, with the forest creatures. Yes, the cricket will stop rattling, and the wandering firefly that lights the tired woodsman home through the raining trees could not strike a damp light to star the wanderer home. There is lyrical quality also, which helps with the alliteration. Old hands dried up like claws, heaping old sticks on sticks, too weak to protect her nest. The lyrical speech of the forest creatures contrasts with the everyday prosaic language of, for instance, Grosjean and Mijan, suggesting that there is a spirituality that the animals have and that Grosjean does not have. He turns to them when the creatures of the forest speak and he says, get out of my way, you slimy bastard, which also shows that he has no respect for the creatures there. Patois and Creole, these are used in the play constantly. Due to the fact that Mijan has studied a lot but learned only a little, he is given a language that is different. It's a mixture. It's a mixture of of the uneducated class and that of the educated class. And he says, and of course, sorry, not he says, the devil is not impressed by it when he says incorrectly, when you inadvertently imbue mere animals with an animus or a soul. Of course, this is not correct. But then Walcott tries to show that with Mijan trying to be as educated as he is, he often gets it the wrong way. And of course, the devil is capable of speaking like a learned academic, but he can also descend to levels of vulgarity, which reminds us that the devil takes many forms. He says, I've been watching you little nowhere nigger, you little squirt, you're dirt. Well, my most interesting part of this play is the humor that is there. There are serious themes in the play, serious issues that must be dealt with, but the puns that Mijan uses, always forgetting the bait, so between debate and debate. Yes, D-E-B-A-I-T, 2 words, and the word debate. So that is one where there is also, again, there is also the mock heroic tone, where there is Mijan's march across the stage, and there is that striking of a military air. There is also humor in the situational humor, in Tijan's producing the goat seed and announces that he has enjoyed the curried goat. Mijan's shift from the pompous legal language is also one that adds humor to the play. And then he makes his angry outburst when he's finally frustrated by the goat's bleating. He shifts from the exaggerated hypothesis unsubstantiated to, oh, shut you damn mouth, both of y'all, you. Of course, we see the changes in his language, and this shows his frustration, yes, on many levels, but it's also funny. There is farce in the play, and this adds to the humor. F-A-R-C-E, farce. Grosjean and then Mijan chases the goat. There is bathos. The devil recalls his glory days in heaven. Of course, we can't help but find this funny, because it's the devil who is there reminiscing on the fact that he was once the son of the morning, the prince of the light. And then, of course, he slips from that high, lofty tone and bursts out, oh, to hell with that, you lose a job, you lose a job. It is where we see another instance of humor. You have stuck with me this long, people. There is only one more to go, and this is the themes and the symbols. Here we look at comparing the beginning and the end, the evils of slavery and colonialism, rescue of the future, faith, hope, and unity in the face of oppression, and some additional symbols that are used. Keep it up. You're going on just as well. Thanks for staying with me. Let's just quickly go through the themes and the symbols here. In looking at the play, we have to look at the beginning and the end. At the start of the play, we realize that there was a high level of disorder. We first meet a family who is living in poverty and who are actually the targets of the forces of evil. They are also taken over by fear because of the life that they live, because of the situation that they're in, because of their circumstances. We also see that there is a fetus that has been denied life. And of course, the fetus is now condemned to a life of being a slave to the devil. At the end of the play, however, we see that Tijan has confronted the devil. He has restored some amount of order. He challenged the devil's lies. He claims his freedom. The Bolum is also given life. Tijan and the Bolum are now brothers, and they now have a better future. But with all of the better that comes, we realize that there is sadness. Grosjean and Mijan dies, and so does the mother. Even though she prays up to her last breath, and she has hope, she also dies for the safety of her youngest son. The freedom for the Bolum and Tijan has come at a price, of course. And so, when we come towards the end of the play, there is a mixed feeling of excitement, joy, and that which is filled with sorrow. We realize that Tijan and the Bolum now face the future. The forest creatures, of course, urge Tijan to sing and suggest that he must go on. Now, the lessons that we learned from the beginning to the end of the play is that social evils are not overcome by physical strength. They are not overcome by any form of education. and that evil has to be overcome by faith, humility, endurance, courage, and unity. And these are the characteristics we see in Tijan. Evil comes in different forms, but one must be resolute in exposing and resisting the evil, even though there may be violence involved. The future, which Bolam represents, can be guaranteed only if one unites persistently and faces the challenge with a lot of zeal and persistence, and so as to not allow the injustices of the system to destroy us as a people. The second one is the evils of slavery and colonialism. The main part of the play is the link between the devil and the plantocracy in the West Indies. Tijan's challenge is to triumph over the particular evil. He struggles against poverty. He struggles against discouragement that he faces through Papa Boy. He struggles against the ignorance and the degradation and also the dehumanization that comes with the cruel, unjust system of slavery and colonialism. But we realize that he draws his strength for his struggle. He takes the strength from his mother and the faith that she has and the love that she possesses that do not waver. He also draws his strength from the support of the forest creature, whom he shows respect at all levels. He also draws his strength from the united action of the cane workers and from his personal integrity, his mother's wit and his self-respect. Now we move on to rescue of the future. The Bolam. The Bolam represents the future. It is strangled at birth, which symbolizes the fact that the West Indian people, had been strangled by colonialism, by the whole era of the Europeans coming here and trying to change the way of life. Neither the strength of Grosjean, which we see at the service of the oppressor, nor the little learning that Mijan possesses and which he uses to attempt to reason with the oppressor, none of these help to liberate the future, which we see in the form of Bolam. But it is Tijan's determination, cunning his rebellion and his faith, which leads to his success in instances where his brothers had failed, despite their strength and their learning. Before we get to some additional symbols, let's look at the faith, hope, and unity of the oppression. Tijan is clearly a revolutionary leader. He is different from his brothers. He can see clearly that there can be no playing fair with the colonizers, with the oppressors, those who oppress you. There is no chance for you to reason with these people. He kills and eats the goats, which tells us that he stands in the face of danger. He takes down danger. Just like that. He doesn't go around his problems. He takes it down. The goat would represent then the rules and the regulations set out by the colonizers. Now, Tijan also urges the sugar workers to revolt, to change, not to accept their life as it is. Burn down the cane, burn the system, get rid of the system, dismantle the colonizers' system. And as such, he wants his own and the Bolam's freedom. And so he believes that there are different ways to get it. You don't go around the system. You take the system head on. However, it is not only what Tijan does, but the spirit in which he does this that brings success. He shows faith and hope. He reaches out to those around him because fighting against colonialism and fighting against the struggles that we face in our lives cannot be a single-handed effort. And so Tijan shows that there is unity. There is strength in unity. If one becomes united with everybody, then one is able to succeed. He enlists the help of the forest creatures and the cane workers, and these people all join him in his struggle. The Bolam also, who had been the devil's servant, is inspired by Tijan, and he puts himself between his newfound brother and the devil and demands justice for Tijan. Without any preaching, without any extended narration, the play shows us that the struggle for liberation, for freedom, is a spiritual one, and that this struggle for freedom is more than physical strength and learning, and this will help them to bring down any force. It also requires some amount of violence, yes, as in the burning of the cane and the destruction of the planter's house. In addition, the spiritual values embraced by Tijan along with his determined resistance, are qualities that are needed if people who have suffered against oppression are to gain freedom and if they are to claim their equal rights in the world. Now, finally, some additional symbols. And yes, I said finally, we're almost at an end. Mijon's books and useless fishing nets symbolize an education that makes him unfit to support his family. The devil and his henchmen symbolize the evils that are unleashed by slavery and colonization. Grosjean's axe symbolizes his physical prowess, but of course, this is helpless against the evil system. The forest creatures are symbolic of the natural goodness and wisdom that have been driven into hiding by the colonial system. The devil's constant gnawing on human bone, the eating away of human bones, shows the countless human beings that are sacrificed to the plantation economy. The burning cane fields symbolize the revolution that would have taken place. The devil's mask and Papa Boy each are symbolic in the way that evil changes its real nature. Evil comes in different forms. So, now that we have reached the end of this very lengthy video, I hope you stayed. I hope you have watched most of it, if not all of it. I want to say thank you so much for stopping by. This is my last in the series of Tijon. I believe we will move on next to the Shakespeare. Not many people will like the Shakespeare, but we will move on to the Shakespeare. So remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe with the bell on to get new notifications so that this will help you with your CSET exams. Thank you again for stopping by, and thank you for enduring this lengthy video. I hope you actually learned something. Leave a comment below, please. Let me know if there is anything else you need to know on Tijon and his brothers. So, thanks again for stopping by.